All right, so today we're going to talk about a situation in a startup where the employees are suspecting that the CEO is trying to screw them over in terms of their stock equity grants, right? So, this is actually a friend of mine, and she's been part of this tech startup since day one. She's been hustling alongside the CEO and the original crew. Back then, the talk was about rewarding the first hour team with 2 to 3% each. But after 1 year, the big reveal is that instead of 2 to 3%, it's only 0.5% per person. And the team consists of the CEO and 3 employees, and all of them have done serious work. They left more senior jobs in the tech industry to join this company, pre-product and pre-revenue, and she's being paid slightly below her market rate, right? So let's dissect the situation first. And the first question that you need to ask yourself is whether you trust the CEO's handshake. So if the CEO makes you a handshake deal, like, hey, you and I verbally agree on something and I shake your hand, how much do you trust that handshake, right? Because the concept is that if you can't trust his handshake, then you can't trust his signature, right? If you can't trust his handshake, you cannot trust his signature. What does that mean? Even if I were to give you a contract, promising you a certain amount of shares or whatever, all that can be negated. If the CEO wants to really fuck you over, when the going gets tough, when there's too much money on the line and he doesn't want to share it with people, as a CEO, you can do a lot of black magic to basically either fire employees at the right time or the wrong time, whatever you call it, or just figure out some kind of other thing where him and the investors, or maybe only him or whatever, get away with most of the money and the employees are left hanging. So if you don't trust the handshake, like, the signature is not worth that much more either, all right? Because how many of you really want to go after a startup company over invisible shares? You're arguing over invisible money in the future sometime, right? It's stupid. You'll have to prove in court that you were an amazing employee and that you were fired wrongly at the wrong time, and like that you were the best employee they could possibly have. They couldn't have hired anybody better. The company really needed you and they fired you only for that reason. Like, it's so hard to prove that stuff in court that you're just better off fucking off if you don't trust the CEO, all right? Instead of trying to, hold on to some contract. Now, the other part of this is, let's say you do trust the CEO, right? How do you approach the CEO to renegotiate? Wrong way to go about it is to complain about it, right? Hey, I'm thinking of leaving, or I don't like this, or I think I deserve more. You're basically just inviting a longer argument or discussion about what makes you think so. You're not going to get that raise if you go out with that angle, right? So here's what you should do instead. You want to talk to the CEO, you want to sit him down, and you want to ask him, what is your vision for the future of this company in the next 5 years or so? What do you see this company becoming? What's your vision? And then once he lays out this rosy picture, you ask him, where do you see my role in building that and thriving in that future, or in thriving in this company, this vision that you're talking about, right? It's really exciting. Where do you see me in this picture? And of course, the CEO, if he or she actually likes you, then they're gonna paint another rosy picture of how amazing you're gonna be and how much you're gonna grow in your career at this company and this and that, and they don't want you to leave or whatever, right? And then you ask them, okay, with this context, how much equity does this person deserve, right? And then you can have a conversation about whether 0.5% is fair, right? Because you came at it from a positive angle and you put the CEO on the spot. Like, you tell me what your vision is, and if I'm really valuable to this startup, to this company, what is a fair amount of equity for that person who is building this vision into this shape and who is supposedly extremely important in this company, right? It's an easy conversation to have, and it's going to have a higher success rate. Now, of course, there's another angle to this. In this case, the friend of mine, she bills him hourly. She's still a freelancer. She's still supposedly part-time, even though she works full-time hours, but she has to bill him for the hours, right? And my advice to her was that, hey, if you think that your CEO is really going to screw you over, if you really don't trust him, because she doesn't trust the CEO. If you don't trust the CEO and you don't think you're going to get the equity that was promised, then I would just say, until you get the equity that you feel happy about, bill the shit out of him. Bill him like a lawyer. You know how lawyers bill you? Like, oh, I was thinking about you in the shower and, I solved this mental problem about the company, about your case, and like, here's another $300 bill. Oh, I talked about your case with a colleague of mine over lunch, and here's another $200 that I need from you. That's the kind of shit they pull over you, right? My suggestion to this person, and of course, it's easy for me to say because it's not my company, but still, like, if the CEO is trying to be picky about how much he rewards the people who were there with him since the beginning, then you need to do what's best for you and bill him as much as possible. And it's the CEO's job to make people feel like they're part of the goal, they're part of the company. At least that's what I try to do with my people. And of course, I don't always succeed, but if you were my employee and you felt like you couldn't trust me and we couldn't talk about it, and you decided to bill me like crazy, then I would deserve it, honestly. And the last thing I'm going to say on this topic is, if you want to know what your boss really thinks of you, here's a question you can ask them. On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate my performance? Or how would you rate me as an employee? Or how would you rate me in this role? Ask for a 0 to 10 rating. And let me tell you this. Once you ask that question, there is no going back. Okay? If they give you anything below 8, right? Either they'll give you something like 8 or 9 or whatever, and they'll say, hey, I think you're doing great, but here's a couple things that you could change or that you could do better. That's a positive sign. Or they could say, hey, you're doing amazing. Oh, why would you ask me that question? You're doing so great. Where is this coming from? That's the best scenario. Your job is safe. It's basically what it means. They don't regret hiring you. They don't want to fire you, right? But if they say anything less than 7, let's say if they give you a 5 or 6, I would say start looking for a new job, because once your boss themselves puts that number in their own head and verbalizes it with their mouth, they're going to start thinking of firing you, and they're probably going to fire you within a week or 2, or as soon as they can. Like, you're basically an expendable employee as soon as they say from their own mouth that you're a 5 or a 6 or a 4 or 3, whatever, right? This is a dangerous question, right? So only ask this question if you're really at a crossroads, because I would also say, if you're a 6, if he rates you a 6, do you really want to be a 6? Like, is that something you're happy with? Whether that's accurate or not, are you happy in a job or in a role or in a career or with a boss where you are or are seen as a 6? And it comes down to personal life philosophy and goals and ambition. But I personally don't want to be a 6. I want to be a 9 or 10 in everything that I do seriously. As an entrepreneur, I want to be a 10 on 10 entrepreneur, right? So that's what I'll leave you with. If you can't trust the handshake, you can't trust the signature, number 1. If you're going to ask for a raise, talk about the future of the company and what they expect from you, instead of trying to complain and like coming at it negatively, trying to pick an argument basically about what is fair and what isn't fair, or that's a stupid argument. You're not going to win, you might get fired, right? And if you want to know where you stand in the company, ask your boss to say 0 to 10. Give you a rating, right? And if it's anything less than 7, get the fuck out, find another job. And until you find that job, if you're billed hourly, just bill the shit out of your boss.